Jungkook's fingers trace the edge of YN's dress, his movements slow and deliberate. His dark eyes locked onto hers, searching for a reaction. But YN didn't move, didn't flinch, she just stared right back, challenging him silently. A smirk tugged at Jungkook's lips. "You're acting brave, princess," he murmured, slipping the fabric from her shoulder. Still, YN didn't react. Jungkook's jaw clenched. She was teasing him back. "Oh, so you think you can play this game with me?" His voice dropped, laced with amusement and something darker. He leaned closer, his breath fanning over her skin, and still refused to give him the satisfaction of a single sound. Jungkook's patience snapped. He pressed closer, his hands gripping her firmly as he whispered, "Scream my name, princess," and lips curled into a mischievous smirk. "Beg if you want to hear it." Jungkook stilled for a second before chuckling darkly. "Bold of you." His fingers tightened around her waist. "Let's see how long you last." And with that, he didn't hold back. His pace was relentless, his touch electrifying. In bit her lip, trying to hold back, trying to win this silent battle of wills. But it didn't take long. A few minutes later, she gasped, her breath hitching as his name finally slipped past her lips. "Jungkook." He smirked, victorious. "That's more like it," he murmured, brushing his lips against hers. "Next time, don't challenge me, princess." Jungkook's smirk deepened as YN gasped his name. But just when she thought he'd push further, he suddenly stopped. Without a word, he turned his back to her, lying down and pretending to sleep. Her heart pounded in her chest, the fire he had ignited still burning fiercely inside her. She blinked in disbelief, her frustration growing with every passing second. Seriously, she whispered to herself, feeling the ache of unfinished desire. Minutes ticked by, she tossed, turned, and huffed. But Jungkook didn't move. He just lay there, his bare back facing her like he hadn't just driven her insane moments ago. Finally, she couldn't take it anymore. With a quiet sigh of defeat, YN shifted closer, slipping her arms around his waist from behind, her body pressing into his back. "Jungkook," she whispered softly, her voice laced with longing. "Please, make love to me." At her words, Jungkook's lips curved into a small, victorious smile, though he hid it from her. He slowly turned around, his dark, intense eyes locking onto hers. Without wasting a second, he cupped her face and kissed her deeply, his touch both soft and demanding. Trailing kisses down her neck, he worked his way lower down her collarbone, her stomach, and finally her legs. With each lingering kiss, YN's breath grew shakier, her need for him spiraling. But then, Jungkook's voice broke the silence, slow, husky, and seductive. "Say my name, baby," he whispered against her skin. "Call me your love." In's eyes widened slightly, her mind reeling. He wasn't begging because she wanted it, he was begging because he wanted it. Her heart thudded louder. He needed her just as much, if not more. And at that moment, the fire between them burned hotter than ever. The night blurred into a haze of passion, every touch and whisper igniting a deeper fire between them. Just when YN thought the moment couldn't get any more intense, she softly whispered, "Say those magical words, ... Her heart pounded, fully expecting to hear him say, "I love you." But Jungkook's lips brushed against her ear, his voice a raspy whisper, "I am yours." For a second, YN's heart stopped, her breath caught in her throat. His words echoed in her mind, hitting deeper than she ever expected. It wasn't just a confession, it was a promise, a claim, and a surrender all at once. Their night unfolded from there, a storm of emotions and desire, until sleep finally overtook them. The next morning, soft sunlight peeked through the curtains, casting a warm glow over the room. YN stirred awake, a slight ache spreading through her body, a reminder of last night's intensity. She blinked a few times, finding Jungkook already awake, leaning against the headboard, shirtless, with a lazy yet satisfied smile on his face. "Morning, baby," he said softly, running his fingers through her hair. In groaned lightly, still feeling a bit off, a mix of exhaustion and something else she couldn't quite place. Jungkook noticed immediately. "You don't look so good." "You're not coming to work today," he declared firmly. YN furrowed her brows. "What? No, I'm fine." "No, you're not." He cupped her cheek, his thumb gently tracing circles. "I'm not going either. I'm staying here with you." Her heart fluttered, but she quickly shook her head. "You have an important meeting today, Jungkook. You can't miss it." He tensed, clearly torn between work and her. "I don't care about the meeting." "Well, I do." YN cut him off softly but firmly. "You worked hard for this deal. I'm going too." Jungkook's jaw clenched, his protective instincts kicking in. But he knew better than to argue with her when she had that determined look in her eyes. "Fine," he muttered, running his hand through his messy hair. "But you're not lifting a finger. Just sit next to me in the meeting. That's it." A small smile tugged at YN's lips. "Deal." The atmosphere in the office meeting room was tense, but not because of the deal being discussed. No, the tension was radiating off Jungkook, who was glued to YN's side, refusing to let her lift a finger. Whenever YN so much as shifted in her chair, Jungkook was there, grabbing papers for her, refilling her water glass, and basically treating her like a porcelain doll. The workers were staring. YN gave them an awkward smile, cheeks burning from all the attention. She leaned toward Jungkook and whispered, "They're all staring." "Let them," he replied casually, his hand resting protectively on her thigh. Just when YN thought the meeting couldn't get any more uncomfortable, the client arrived. The client. The same woman who shamelessly flirted with Jungkook at the restaurant not long ago. YN's mood shifted instantly, her usual patience hanging by a thread. She didn't know why, but these days, she couldn't seem to control her mood swings. And right now, seeing that woman bet her last at her husband made her blood boil. Without breaking eye contact with the woman, YN smirked and suddenly said, "Jungkook, open my water bottle." The client's eyes narrowed at her, clearly catching the subtle jab. Jungkook blinked, a bit confused by YN's sudden request, but complied, grabbing the water bottle, unscrew it and handing it to her like it was the most normal thing in the world. "Here, baby, anything else?" he asked softly. "No," YN said sweetly, a victorious glint in her eyes as she drank the water. The woman's jaw tightened. Moments later, the client huffed and turned to Jungkook. "Mr. Jeon, could you open my water bottle too?" she asked, batting her lash. Jungkook didn't even spare her a glance. "One of the workers will help you," he said coldly, motioning for a nearby staff member. YN tried to stifle a laugh but failed, quickly covering it with a cough. The client's face darkened. "You open Miss YN's bottle," she said through gritted teeth. Jungkook's jaw flexed, his gaze sharpened. "Because she's my wife," he said simply, voice firm enough to silence the entire room. The woman gulped, her face turning red, whether from embarrassment or anger. YN didn't know. But the whispers started, quiet yet clear enough for YN to catch snippets. Did he just say she's his? Are they married? Since when? In's face flamed at the sudden attention, and the intensity of Jungkook's possessiveness was almost too much. The stares, the whispers, it was all too overwhelming. "I need a minute," YN mumbled, pushing her chair back and making a beeline for the washroom. Once inside, she leaned against the sink, taking deep breaths, but suddenly a sharp pain bloomed in her stomach. Her hand instinctively went to her abdomen, the ache intensifying. "Damn it, Jungkook," she hissed under her breath, remembering how rough he was last night. "This is all your fault." After a few moments, she collected herself, thinking the pain would pass, and made her way back to the meeting room. But with each step, the pain only seemed to grow worse. She barely made it to her seat, wincing as she sat down. Jungkook noticed immediately. "Are you okay?" he whispered, his hand already back on her thigh, his grip a little firmer this time. "It's nothing," she said through gritted teeth. "Just, my stomach hurts." His face darkened. "What? Why didn't you say anything earlier?" "Shut up, it's probably from last night. You were rough," she muttered quietly, but Jungkook's ears caught every word. His gaze turned even more serious. That's it, we're going to the hospital. What? Who goes to the hospital for this kind of pain? You do, he said, already standing up. Sit down. YN snapped softly, tugging his sleeve. Finish the meeting first. I'm canceling it, he said without hesitation. Her jaw dropped. Jungkook, no. I said finish the meeting. His nostrils flared, but YN's pleading eyes softened his resolve. Fine, he grumbled, sitting back down. But the second this is over, we're going to the hospital. Jungkook practically bulldozed through the rest of the meeting, talking so fast the client could barely keep up. The moment the meeting ended, Jungkook was already at YN's side, helping her stand. But as soon as she got to her feet, the pain in her stomach twisted sharply, so much worse than before. A small gasp escaped her lips, and her knees nearly buckled. YN, Jungkook caught her instantly, his arms wrapping around her waist. That's it, we're leaving. Jungkook stopped just outside the meeting room, his hand resting on YN's back. His concern hadn't lessened, but YN kept brushing him off, insisting she was fine. Stay here, he said softly, his voice firm yet gentle. I'll grab our stuff and the car keys from my cabin. Don't move. YN nodded weakly, leaning against the wall. Her stomach was still aching, but she clenched her teeth and took slow, deep breaths. Jungkook glanced at her once more before walking away. His long strides disappeared down the corridor, but his mind was still on her. Something didn't feel right. She looked pale, and her lips were slightly trembling. Minutes ticked by, and YN's discomfort only grew worse. The dull ache in her stomach suddenly twisted into something sharp and bearable. Her hand shot to her abdomen. She gasped, her knees buckling. The pain surged, a wave so intense it stole her breath away. And then, before she could even process what was happening, she collapsed to the ground, clutching her stomach. A choked scream escaped her lips. Jungkook! Her voice echoed down the hallway. Jungkook, who was just coming back with their stuff, froze the moment he heard her cry. His heart stopped for a split second, and then panic kicked in. YN! He sprinted down the corridor, his heart slamming against his ribs, and within seconds, he was kneeling beside her, his hands trembling as they cupped her face. Baby, what happened? Hey, look at me, he said, his voice breaking. What's wrong? She could barely speak, the pain too much. Her face was twisted in agony, tears pooling at the corners of her eyes. My stomach, she whispered. It hurts so bad. Jungkook's panic only grew. That's it, we're going to the hospital, now. Without wasting another second, he scooped her into his arms. Jungkook put me down, she weakly protested. But he didn't listen. Not a chance, he growled, holding her close to his chest. His jaw clenched so tightly it could break. The staff and workers stared in shock as their CEO rushed out of the building, carrying YN like his life depended on it. Some whispered, others exchanged worried glances, but Jungkook didn't care. The only thing on his mind was getting YN to the hospital. The hospital room was quiet, too quiet. Jungkook paced back and forth, running his fingers through his hair, his heart racing with every passing second. In was lying on the hospital bed, still holding her stomach, though the pain had slightly eased thanks to the medication the doctor gave her. A few moments later, the doctor finally entered, holding a clipboard. Mr. Jeon, the doctor said calmly, your wife is pregnant. The words hit Jungkook like a truck. His mind went blank for a moment. What? The doctor smiled softly. She's pregnant. But the pain she experienced was due to extreme stress, most likely from overworking. Jungkook's heart raced, but this time for an entirely different reason. His eyes darted to YN, who was still processing the news herself. Is she okay? He asked, his voice cracking slightly. She's stable now, the doctor assured. But if the stress continues, it could lead to a miscarriage. She needs complete rest. Mr. Jeon. Jungkook's throat tightened. He walked over to YN, his hand immediately finding hers, and he squeezed it gently. In's eyes welled up with tears, not from pain this time, but from the overwhelming news. Jungkook, she whispered. His free hand cupped her cheek, his thumb brushing away the tear that slipped down. Baby, his voice broke. You're pregnant. We were having a baby. YN nodded, still in disbelief, and Jungkook leaned down, kissing her forehead gently, his heart pounding with a mix of fear, love, and hope. From now on, he whispered, I'm not letting you lift a finger. And this time, YN didn't argue. Instead at Jungkook, her heart still racing, not just from the pain, but from the sheer weight of the news. They were having a baby, their baby. She didn't even realize she was crying until Jungkook kissed the tears away, his hand still holding hers like she might disappear if he let go. Jungkook, she whispered again, her voice breaking. Hey, I didn't know. His thumb brushed over her knuckles gently, me neither, baby, but now we do. And nothing, I mean nothing, is more important than you and our baby. She swallowed hard, a fresh wave of emotion hitting her. But the company, the meetings, I didn't want to cause a scene. Screw the company, YN. His voice was firm, but his eyes were soft. What would I do with all of that if something happened to you? Her heart stuttered at his words. Before she could say anything, the doctor cleared his throat softly. I'll give you both some privacy, but Mrs. Jeon needs complete rest for the next few weeks. No stress, no overworking. Jungkook nodded. Thank you, doctor. As the door closed behind him, silence filled the room again. Jungkook sat beside her on the bed, his hand never leaving hers. His other hand slowly reached out and rested on her stomach, his fingers trembling slightly as they brushed over the spot. We're really having a baby, he murmured, almost to himself. YN smiled softly despite the dull ache still lingering in her stomach. Yeah, we are. Jungkook's eyes flicked up to hers, and for the first time, YN saw something she hadn't seen in him before, pure, unfiltered fear mixed with overwhelming love. You scared me, he whispered, his voice cracking. When you screamed, I thought. She pressed a finger to his lips, stopping him from finishing the sentence. I'm okay, she said softly. We're okay. Jungkook's jaw clenched, and YN could see the storm of emotions in his dark eyes. He leaned in slowly, resting his forehead against hers. You're not going back to work, he stated firmly. In opened her mouth to protest, but he cut her off. I'm serious. No arguments. YN. She sighed. Jungkook, I can't just sit at home and do nothing. Then sit at home and grow our baby. He shot back. That's not nothing, baby. YN blinked at him. You're really not gonna let this go. Oh. Not a chance. A small laugh escaped her lips. You're lucky I love you. Jungkook's lips curled into a soft smile. I know. He gently lowered himself beside her, his arms slipping around her waist as he carefully pulled her into his embrace, mindful of her stomach. His hand stayed on her belly, his thumb drawing soft circles over the spot. You're really gonna be a dad, YN whispered after a few moments of silence. Jungkook's smile widened, his heart racing again, this time not from fear, but from the thought of the life they were about to build together. And you're gonna be the best mom, he replied softly. In's eyes filled with fresh tears, but this time, they were happy ones. Jungkook leaned down, pressing the softest kiss to her stomach. Hey, little one, he whispered against her skin. It's me, your dad. In's heart nearly burst at the sound of those words. Jungkook met her gaze again. From now on, it's us, you, me, and our baby. That's all that matters. And for the first time that day, YN felt a sense of calm wash over her. Their world had just shifted, but as long as Jungkook was by her side, holding her, protecting her, she knew they'd be okay. After a few hours at the hospital, Jungkook carefully guided YN into their home, his hand never leaving her waist. His protective instincts were in full swing, constantly asking if she needed water, a blanket, or anything to make her comfortable. YN found it both sweet and a little over the top. Jungkook, I'm pregnant, not made of glass, she chuckled, sitting on the couch. Jungkook shot her a playful glare. Doesn't matter. From now on, you rest, doctor's orders. Before YN could roll her eyes, the doorbell rang. Jungkook went to open the door, and there stood Hymin and Lisa, a wide grin on Hymin's face while Lisa held a small gift bag. "Congratulations, mommy-to-be," Lisa squealed, rushing inside to hug YN carefully. Hymin followed, dramatically wiping fake tears. "I'm gonna be an uncle. Oh my god, I need to start baby-proofing my house. Should I buy a stroller, diapers? Oh no, do babies even like me?" In laughed at his over-the-top reaction. "Hymin, the baby isn't even born yet, calm down." "I can't calm down," Hymin gasped. "I need to prepare. I'm officially Uncle Hymin now." Lisa smirked. "Well, at least now we know who's going to spoil the baby rotten." Hymin struck a dramatic pose. "Of course, it's my job as the fun uncle." YN giggled, her heart feeling lighter with their presence. But the moment Jungkook entered the room, Hymin's whole demeanor shifted. His dramatic flailing stopped instantly, and he straightened his posture, clearing his throat. "Oh hey, Mr. Jeon Jungkook," he said, suddenly all proper and polite. "Congratulations, man." Lisa, noticing the sudden change, barely held back a laugh. "Wow." From fun uncle to model citizen into seconds flat, she whispered to YN, making her stifle a giggle. Jungkook gave him a subtle smirk, clearly enjoying his friend's nervousness. "Thanks, Hymin. Glad you're excited." Hymin nodded a little too quickly. "Of course. Anything you both need, I'm here." YN shook her head in amusement. "Hymin, you were just acting like a crackhead 2 minutes ago. What happened?" Hymin shot a wide-eyed glance at Jungkook, then back at YN. "I don't know what you're talking about," he muttered, adjusting his shirt like it was suddenly too tight. Lisa finally burst into laughter. "Hymin, relax. Jungkook isn't gonna bite you." Jungkook chuckled softly. "Not unless you stress YN out." Hymin's eyes widened. "I'd never." YN rolled her eyes, leaning into Jungkook's side as he sat beside her. "Looks like the baby already has a very dramatic uncle." YN teased, making everyone laugh. Jungkook, though, kept his arm securely around YN's waist, his thumb softly rubbing her stomach, already slipping into his new role as a protective father-to-be. 7 months later, the evening sun painted soft golden hues across the sky as Jungkook returned home, loosening his tie with a sigh of relief. His long day at work seemed to fade the moment he stepped into the house. "Baby, I'm home," he called out softly, making his way to their room. There she was, YN, now 8 months pregnant, comfortably sitting on their bed with a pillow supporting her back, her round belly taking up most of the space. She was watching a drama on TV, biting her lip in concentration as if the next scene was life or death. Jungkook leaned against the doorframe, a smile tugging at his lips. His heart still raced at the sight of her, even more so now, glowing, beautiful, and carrying his child. "I swear," YN muttered, eyes glued to the screen. "If he chooses that girl, I'm throwing the remote." Jungkook chuckled. "Why do you get so worked up over dramas?" She turned to him, pouting. "It's not just a drama, Jungkook. It's a masterpiece." Shaking his head fondly, Jungkook walked over, kissed her forehead, and grabbed some clothes. "I'm gonna freshen up. Don't throw the remote at the TV while I'm gone," he teased. When he returned, YN had paused the drama, rubbing small circles over her baby bump. Jungkook's heart melted at the sight, the way she looked at their unborn child with so much love. "Let's have dinner," he said softly. In the dining room, YN slowly settled into her chair as Jungkook placed a hand on her lower back. Ever the protective husband, they shared a simple meal, chatting about their day, Jungkook telling her about a funny incident at work and YN complaining about how hard it was to pick up something she dropped earlier. "I swear, I'm like a turtle flipped on its back," she huffed. Jungkook laughed. "A very cute turtle, though." Her cheeks warmed. "Flirt." After dinner, Jungkook climbed onto the bed, his back resting against the headboard, and gently pulled YN onto his stomach, her round baby bump pressing against him. "Comfortable?" he asked, his hand moving to rest over her belly, slowly tracing patterns. Yn hummed, her fingers lightly playing with the chain around his neck. "Very." Jungkook's other hand cupped her waist as his thumb rubbed soft circles over her bump. "Can't believe we're so close," he whispered, his voice filled with awe. "Soon, there's gonna be a little version of us running around." Yn smiled, "Or crying all night." Jungkook smirked. "Either way, they're stuck with us." They talked for a while about the baby, the nursery, and random little things. Yn would ramble about the drama she was watching earlier, and Jungkook would listen intently, responding when needed, but never stopping the soft caresses on her belly. His touch was tender, protective. After a while, they both drifted off to sleep. But at midnight, Jungkook stirred awake, frowning slightly when he felt Yn shifting beside him, her body moving restlessly. "Baby," he murmured, his voice husky with sleep. "What's wrong?" In froze, not wanting to bother him. "Nothing. I just can't sleep." Jungkook didn't buy it for a second. His eyes, still heavy with sleep, roamed over her face. "Can't sleep? Or are you craving something?" Her lips pressed into a thin line. A small smirk tugged at the corner of his mouth. "Wanna eat ramen?" In's eyes lit up instantly, but she tried to play it cool. "It's too late for that." Jungkook stretched lazily. "All right then. I guess I'll just make some for myself." Her head snapped toward him. "Make some for me too." Jungkook chuckled softly, already climbing out of bed. "I knew it." Yn pouted. "It's not my fault. The baby wants ramen." He leaned down, pressing a soft kiss to her belly. "Of course, anything for our baby." In the kitchen, Jungkook boiled water and prepared the ramen, moving swiftly as Yn leaned against the counter, watching him, her eyes soft. "What?" he asked, stirring the pot. "Nothing," Yn whispered, a small smile tugging at her lips. "You just look really hot cooking ramen." Jungkook smirked. "Well, I am a man of many talents." She laughed softly. Once the ramen was ready, they sat at the kitchen table. Yn happily slurped her noodles, and Jungkook just stared. "Why are you staring?" she asked between bites. Jungkook shook his head, his voice husky. "Just thinking about how sexy you look right now." Her cheeks flushed, even with a mouthful of ramen. He licked his lips slowly, his eyes dropping to her round belly, then back to her face. "Especially with a mouthful of ramen," he murmured. Her cheeks flushed instantly. "Jungkook." When she finished, Jungkook wordlessly picked her up bridal style. "Jungkook," she yelped, "I can walk." "No," he smirked. "I'm carrying my beautiful, sexy wife to bed." He climbed the stairs and gently laid her down. But his gaze didn't leave her, roaming over her swollen belly, her flushed cheeks, and the way her shirt clung to her. And in his mind, there was only one thought screaming at him. "She's so beautiful, so sexy. How am I supposed to control myself?" His jaw clenched as he shifted beside her, the ache between his legs growing unbearable. His mind was clouded with dirty thoughts. She wasn't just glowing because of pregnancy. She was a whole new level of breathtaking. In noticed his intense stare. "Why are you looking at me like that?" Jungkook leaned closer, his voice low and dangerous. "Because every time I see you like this, I get hard." Her lips parted in shock. "Jungkook, have mercy on me." "Yn," he whispered, his hand resting on her baby bump. "You drive me crazy." Her heart thundered against her chest, and for a second, just a second, she forgot how to breathe. Time skipped 2 years later. The Jeon Empire was known for its power, discipline, and professionalism. A corporate giant ruling over industries like a kingdom. But today it wasn't Jungkook or Yn running the show. It was their 2-year-old daughter, Jeon Kiara. Dressed in a tiny pastel dress with her hair tied up into small pigtails, Kiara stood proudly at the head of the long meeting room table, a toy crown slightly slipping off her head. Her chubby hand held a pen which she had absolutely no clue how to use, and her wide, doe eyes stared down at the team of executives sitting stiffly around the table. "Kiara, baby, don't throw that," YN whispered gently from her chair beside Jungkook, trying not to laugh. Jungkook, on the other hand, was leaning back with a proud smirk, arms crossed over his chest. "Let her be. She's the boss now," he teased. Kiara furrowed her tiny brows, puffing her cheeks. "New dada, meet da boss," she declared, her little voice demanding attention despite the words coming out adorably jumbled. And to everyone's surprise, the staff actually nodded. "Yes, Miss Kiara. Of course, Miss Kiara," noted Miss Kiara. It was almost comical how these top-level executives, grown adults in suits and ties, were hanging onto every order that spilled from the tiny girl's lips, acting like their entire careers depended on pleasing her. One man, clearly flustered, adjusted his glasses. Should we proceed with the next presentation, sir?" Jungkook raised a brow and looked at Kiara. "What do you think, baby? Shall we continue?" Kiara blinked and dramatically threw the pen across the table. The room fell silent. "Guess that's a no," YN chuckled, covering her mouth to stifle a laugh. Jungkook leaned over, resting his chin on his palm. "She's already got the Jeon attitude," he muttered, half proud, half amused. YN shook her head, "More like your attitude." Just then, Kiara toddled over to Jungkook's lap, climbing up and making herself comfortable. She clutched his tie and gave it a firm tug, giggling. "Kiara, not the tie, baby. Jungkook wins." "Easy there, princess. This tie costs more than your toy collection." "Toy," Kiara giggled, yanking it again like it was one of her stuffed animals. Jungkook just sighed with a smile, clearly helpless against his daughter's antics. YN leaned closer and kissed Kiara's cheek. "You really are ruling the Jeon Empire with your tiny hands, huh?" Jungkook smirked. Jeon Kiara, the youngest CEO in history. As Kiara babbled happily in Jungkook's lap, occasionally shouting random words like "no" or "mine." The staff continued the meeting, fully aware that their real boss wasn't Jungkook anymore. It was the little girl in his arms. And honestly, no one dared to disobey their new tiny ruler.